All right, so I'm here with Bryan Thoner, and Bryan, you're a farmer, but you are a retired dairy farmer. Right, Bryan, we were talking about your 4040 here, and you had a brother-in-law that had one
Yep,
that he had bought new.
yep.
So you kind of did you like that one?
I never really drove his. It wasn't that. We were chopping hay a lot with our 4030. We had two 4030s, and I thought I needed a little more horsepower. And
Which people, if you don't know, you'd think a 4020 got replaced by a 4030, but it didn't.
No. And this is only 90 horse, our 4030 was 80 horse, and it did the trick. This was our main chopping tractor after we bought it for many years. The problem is with harvester haylage back in them days, you chopped it a little dry.
Yeah.
So any little bit of wind without a cab, it's like it was just, your eyes were full of hay, and it was just a pain, but the tractor was fine. It's just, that's the way it was back then.
Yeah, 3020 went to the 4030. The 4020 went to the 4230.
Oh, I
They
guess.
were, yeah, because 4030 is only 329 cubic inches,
Yep.
right? And these are 404.
Okay. It's a much harder, colder starter tractor than my 4030 was.
Yep.
I told you the 4030 was my main manure hauling tractor. We milk cows and had to clean barn every day. And that tractor would start, I mean, you'd plug it in on the cold days, but boy, that still is a great starting tractor. This one, if it gets down below 40 degrees in the fall and that, you might as well plug it in because it's a cold starter. But anyway, that was the story. So I bought it used with 700 hours on it, and we were moldboard plowing too, so 4 bottom plow, and this handled it much better. But it was used at Ellsworth Equipment down here on the highway when Durand Implement kind of ran it.
Yep.
And I went to Farm Credit to see if he'd let me buy the tractor. This was, I'm trying to think of the year, maybe 86 or 7. It was tough in the 80s. And so I bought it, and Tom Sitz was my loan officer, and he just, when I signed the papers, he says, "Now you be careful, that's a lot of money." And I thought, man, I'm looking back, 20 grand, and it's like, it's piddly compared to today's prices. But anyway, now it's got 8,000 hours on it, and I do plant with this tractor. I spray corn, and I used to, until last fall, run the batch dryer or Toxiwick with this, and it's been a good tractor. It's just, seen its better days as far as, I plant with a 6-row planter and it handles that farm. It's just not a cab, so
Yeah.
it's kind of cold.
It's a synchro too, isn't it?
Yep. Yep.
So pretty basic. Must be an 80 or newer, isn't it? 80.
Yeah,
81?
I think it was a 1980.
Okay.
And the 40, we had two 4030s, and my dad bought one brand new. That's the only tractor that's ever been new on this farm in 1974. But Myron Leonard, you couldn't buy a new one anywhere. They weren't on the lots. You couldn't even find them. And so Myron Leonard found one down by Madison somewhere, and they hauled it up here, and my dad bought that. That was our first 4030. But when he put the blue silo up for haylage, we had 2 John Deere 60s. So you go in first gear chopping hay and running the blower, and it's like, looking back, I don't know how we
got anything done.
Well, he got a lot done. He outworked me like crazy. He farmed a lot with an A and a B before the 60s, and it's like, so anyway, that's the story on this. And
that's pretty funny though, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, he just gave me a warning. But it was the 1980s, and we were paying part of the 80s, we were paying 16 or 17% on our operating, and our dairy kind of cash flowed the crop inputs, but it wasn't near, you know, $40 for a bag of seed corn. I looked it up once, and now it's like $300 to $400. So it, even though things were tight, we didn't borrow a lot of money to put our crops in, and everything we raised went to raising the cattle and milking the cows. So yeah. So anyway.
No, I always thought that these 40 series, 50, and they actually had 50 series open stations for 2 years.
Oh, did they?
And they're always been a cool looking tractor.
Yeah.
You know, and there were a few around. There was,
yeah,
Ron had a 4040. Esterby's had a 4240 open station.
My brother-in-law Neil had a 4230 he had, and I thought that was about the size we probably should have bought.
Which, it's about the same size as this.
Yeah.
Then.
But it was more like 100 horse versus the 4030 I had was 80, and it's like, and his had a cab and mine didn't.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
So yeah. Anyway.
All right. Still crop farm.
Yep. We plant our corn and beans. I rent my hay. I don't have much hay left, and pasture to the neighbor dairy. And he runs some dry cows on the pasture all summer, and then he bales my hay. He bales his hay and rents from me. So that works out good. I would like to do more, have more hay actually, but it's hard. It's a hard crop to rent out because it needs fertilizer and it doesn't always get what it needs, and so are you going backwards if it isn't taken care of?
Yeah.
You know, same on crops. If you get the wrong renter in and they mine your field down, or mine your fields and don't replace the nutrients taken off, you're probably in 10 years going to go backwards.
Yeah.
When I took over from my dad, I couldn't raise alfalfa because he was a pretty conservative guy and never limed, you know, and all of a sudden all I could grow was clover. Even if I planted alfalfa, it would come up white clover, and and you can see that today on some fields that if they're put into hay and it comes up white clover, it's killing the alfalfa because of pH. So it took me 20 years probably to build it up with lime. Just every time I plow down hay field, I'd put lime on it, and then by the next rotation, it'd be a little better. But anyway, my dad and I, we got along fine, but we just operated differently.
Yeah.
So, which most father and sons do.
Yeah, for sure.
So I was fourth generation, he was third, and my great-grandfather came from Norway in the 1883 and started this farm, and so it just got built up more and more by buying parcels short, you know.
Yep.
So we started out with 132 acres, and now we got 212. So I tried to expand my farm by buying some neighbors' land, and it just never worked out. I always got outbid, and this was, before I even bought the home farm, I tried to buy a 80 that we always cropped. For 20 years we rented it, and then I had a deal with the neighbor, and it's like all of a sudden another neighbor comes and offers him more, and it's like, well, I lost it. So it's like, I guess God was telling me you don't need to get bigger. So we just kind of stayed pretty small, 40 cow dairy.
Yep. Well, Kurt Nelson told me one of the reasons he moved was, he goes, this neighborhood is just too competitive.
It is. It's like you got a big grain farmer here, and now you got the big dairy just a half a mile across the field here, and they're, for the good land, they're bidding against each other, and it's like, I'm not going to get in a bidding war and not make money, so.
Which, you know, I always say that our area was probably 90% dairy years ago when I was a kid, but there was 10% probably was crops or hogs.
Yep,
and in this neighborhood over there, you had a couple of the guys that back in the day would have been really big farms, Bartlett's.
Yeah, Bartlett's were a couple 100 acres of cropland maybe back in the day, and then they got bigger than that. But
And
yeah.
Leonard's were a
Leonard's, they just kept buying land in the 80s when nobody else could probably, and as far as a young guy couldn't compete buying land. And you know, they ended up owning a lot of land around here, good farmers, but just couldn't bid against them.
Yep. And then Ron Anderson was
Him and Wayne farmed together, his brother
Yep.
Wayne, and yeah, they ran quite a bit of land. And
they did some grain farming too.
Yep. I hired Ron many years to haul some corn if I needed corn hauled, and
Yep.
you know.
And then Lindstrom's.
Yep.
You know.
Actually, my grandparents borrowed money from Ralph's parents.
Really?
Back in the probably early 1900s, you know, and it just surprises me. I mean, both Lindstrom's and the Thoners and a few others around Bartlett's go back close to 150 years now, but it's, it was amazing. Of course, Ralph was a good farmer and that, but he never married, and so it's like no family expenses and lived with mom, so.
Right.
I guess that's the way to be successful financially, but.
He was a good dairyman.
He was very good.
Yeah.
And when you know, I'm a retired dairy, but I told my dad, I got out of high school in 1974, and I told my dad, I'm not going to milk cows. So he goes and sells the cows in 1975. And within 6 months, I go, oh, shoot, I think I want to milk cows. And the reason was because I had a brother that was 1 year older than me. So he got all the tractor work growing up, teenagers.
Yep.
Guess where I was? In the barn, milking cows with Dad. And so I got to really liking cows, milking cows, the whole genetics, all that. I went to school, lived here for 4 years after high school, went to River Falls, drove there every day, and milked cows every day unless I had a meeting or something there. And so, you know, there was a lot of years I had class at 8 o'clock in River Falls, and we were done with our 3 hours of chores or whatever by then, and sitting in class. So it was a tough 4 years, but I just stuck it out, and I got a teaching degree in agriculture. I got offered a job to teach ag in Goodhue, Minnesota, which would have been a great place to teach ag, because that's still a great place.
Oh yeah,
You know, and my dad was, all those years of college for me, he was getting into real estate.
Yep.
He wanted out of farming, and he had done it. He was in his 52 when he sold to me, and he went into full-time real estate, built a new house in Ellsworth, and so that was our opportunity. I married a dairy girl from down your dad's home place there, and she knew what she was getting into. I keep telling her that. But that was a working wife to get. Boy, she could milk cows, she could do it all. And anyway, I ended up getting my teacher degree and turned down that job because I said to Kathy, I said, this is our one chance to farm, and if Dad sells it, there is no chance probably. So I said, let's give it a couple years. Well, now 47 years later, here we are.
Yeah.
So, and it was a good place to raise a family. It was work, but I ain't gonna say it was all fun, but it was a good place to raise a family. Because we're on a dead end here, no traffic. Mail and milk truck come right to the building site here, and snow plow too, we're a town road, but it was a good place. School bus came right up here. So it was a good place to raise a family. But
were you Route 4?
1.
You're Route 1? Oh,
Yep,
okay.
Yep, Route 1. So back in those days, I was telling you, we had Bob Donnelly for a milk hauler. You could set your clock by him. And our mailman was Eddie Doherty. All these Doherty kids, it was their dad. And you could set your clock by him. And now today's standards, it's just way different, you know. But man, it was a different era back then. So after college, I dated Kathy for like 6, 7 years, and her whole neighborhood was, I knew Kenny and Adeline Florness real well on the bluffs. And they knew my parents and they knew her parents and kept saying, when are you two ever going to get married? Well, I wasn't going to get married until I got done with college, so I kept telling her. Actually, she probably was saying no if I asked her anyway. But so we got married in 1978, and then my dad wanted out of here and built his house. So we set up a rent lease to purchase for 5 years. You could purchase for the price we had set, and so 4 years into it, we decided to buy. So it was a 30-year contract with my dad, which worked out good, but, you know.
Which, so 78, 82?
Yeah, 80, actually, probably in the end of 82, we started all the workings, and then our daughter, Karen, was born in 83, and that's when we actually took the farm over, purchased it in 83. So,
but you had set the price earlier?
Yeah.
Which,
in 1978, you could do that, but you also I had to pay my dad the going rate for land, you know, regulations, and then I had to pay whatever the banks were charging for interest rate on his contract, and so it was 7%, I believe, on his land contract, and then down the road we changed it when interest rate dropped a little bit to maybe 5% on the contract. But that was his contract, and then I had farm credit for operating loan.
Chattel and all, so
all through college, every time I come up, I milked, and he gave me half the milk check by doing the labor and supplying some feed expenses and crop expenses. And every time I'd have $900, I'd go to back then there was auctions all the time. You go buy another cow, and then so he kind of, you know, he helped me in a way get into dairy, even though he had already sold his cows. He bought probably 15 when I bought 15, and then I just kept adding over the years. And by the time I was done with college, or a year later, I pretty much owned the herd. I mean, it was, you know, gradually getting into it, but.
Okay. So did you milk just a handful of cows for a while?
No, it was we bought probably 30 after he had sold and the barn was empty for one winter. We bought 30, 15 for me and 15 for him. And so we started with 30, but back and then he was only milking maybe 32 cows, and that's all we had was 32 stalls. And then, you know, he said, if you're going to milk, we're not going to have a barn cleaner setting out in the cold, so he added on to the barn and closed shed over the barn cleaner, and had a few extra stalls there and a couple pens. But that way we could we could store the tractor and spreader inside all winter.
So it wouldn't freeze.
Yeah, it worked. But then, of course, down the road, it's like, well, I'm going to tear all that out, put the barn cleaner on the other end of the barn through Holcomb's in Elmwood. They were the Pat's dealer, and then we added up to 40 stalls, and then later our big addition was tearing out a pen and putting 3 more stalls. So we ended up with 43 stalls, and that was enough back then, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking dairying with 4 little kids through the 80s. It wasn't easy, but you just worked, never bought nothing new, you know, and so anyway.
Yeah, So 70,
78 to college graduate.
okay, so then you were, so you started adding the cows.
In 76.
Okay, yep.
And then, I would get half the milk check. So back in the day, it was probably I think it was $9 milk in the late 70s. And so, I didn't have a lot of other expenses. I paid for my own way through college, but back then it was maybe $1,500 a year to start, and by the end it was maybe $2,500 for the whole year.
Yeah.
And so, it was back in the day, they were 3/4 at River Falls, so Thanksgiving was your first break, and I'd come home for a week, have a week off, and my job was cleaning sheds with tractor and loader and spreader, and that, you just worked, and so then we got married in 78 in the fall, and started on our own. So
when your dad sold the cows, did he get rid of most of the machinery?
No, he didn't get rid of anything.
Okay.
And so it's not that my dad never had a really great line of machinery. I mean, every time we'd go out baling hay with an old hay rack flatbed with a car frame under it, or car tires under it, you'd have a flat tire every day or something because it was just junk.
Yeah.
But he got the job done. My dad was not a detail person, and I asked Mom once after I started on my own and they moved to town, and I says, how could Dad get done with chores so fast? And he says, well, when he was done, he shut the door. He didn't check on the other stuff, and I was a detail guy, and it's like, take me 4 hours to do what he did too. But I paid attention to the cows. I guess that's where I knew we made our money, and so
and I saw that over time, and I think you could see that as dairy started, as guys started to get out of dairy. There was a time when dairy was pretty good business, so there were non-dairy farmers that milked cows.
Oh yeah.
But then
it's like one buddy told me, there's a few guys milking cows that shouldn't be allowed to farm.
Right. And
but
as the crop thing got better, then guys got rid of the cows.
Well, give you an example. I grew up milking cows, and then I milked cows for probably 15 different farmers around here through college, and that my dad would say, well, if somebody wants you to milk their cows, go milk their cows and get some cash, to spend. And so like Dale Anderson and Teddy Place, and over on this side of town, Donnie Huber called me a lot, Paul's dad, and so I got an experience of different types of operations and how they operated too, and you just learned. So
I'm surprised though that your dad not wanting to invest a lot in the farm, put up a harvester.
So it got to a point where I think he just got tired of baling hay.
So we were just saying the high moisture corn unit was built second.
68.
Okay. And this is so it's 10, 20, so it's less than 30 feet, right?
Yeah, it's 20, 22, they always said. 5,000 bushels, but I don't think it held that because of the airbags.
Right.
Every fall, especially the bigger herd we got, it would be empty, and it would be empty for days. And we always filled it with an auger because it's short, no blower.
So even back then, you never had a pipe on it for?
No.
Really? Okay.
And so you set up a 50 or 60, 50-foot auger, and you could auger from there or the other end and reach the top.
Yeah.
And so that way, it never cracked the corn at all. It was a good way to do it. But I'd always get in it when it was full and hit the top, and then just shove it between the bags and get another couple hundred bushels in there. But it was about the perfect size for 40 cows. But that's back in the day when, before TMR, I probably fed more corn than after TMR per cow. But the year ended up about the same, I would say. you know, the TMR mix would always call for like 20 pounds of corn.
Yep.
So anyway,
This
but yeah.
and who built these, Brave?
Yeah, these are all Brave, and I had them do maintenance on everything for many years till they quit. And then I got the guy from Goodhue, Lance.
Oh, from Agritech?
Yeah, no, he was kind of on his own.
Oh.
Back of, just on east of Goodhue. I can't think of his last name, but he was good and just kind of on his own. But that's one thing about people always said, well, harvesters are so expensive. My dad spent $13,000 for the big one with an unloader.
Really? And probably a Hercules, right?
Yep. And then we went to Goliath later, but it's probably had 3 different unloaders in it. But the main key was get them empty every year and make sure and maintain them. I always called Brave Harvester to make sure everything was set right and the right tension on the chain and that. So I never had hardly any trouble with unloaders, but you replace a sprocket every time you replace a chain. You just always automatically did that, or your chain would wear out faster. But
was this one originally a chain unloader, or did it
no,
have a
never
auger?
has.
Okay.
It was just wasn't even a power sweep, just a sweep.
Yep.
Still works to this day. I just don't use it anymore. I use it for dry corn storage for a few years, but it's kind of slow unloading.
Yeah.
You know,
So 13,000 for the, and that's
for
a
the
20
big
by,
one. For
yep,
the big one, 2060.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if people, if you don't know, if you ever want to know how tall a harvester is, from as long as it's a 40-footer or bigger, so or actually you count the wind rings, so you add 30 feet to the number of wind rings. So so 3 wind rings would be 60 feet, and so a 40-footer on down will have the one, but a 50-footer will have 2, 60 has 3, 70s have 4,
I
80s
never
have
knew
5.
that. I just knew every sheet's about 5 feet.
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah.
And
I had this one relined once, and then new epoxy floor in both of them years ago. Well, that was the problem with the original steel floors, is after a while the chain would catch them.
Yep.
I did that one year where toward March or so I caught the floor a piece. So then you just have to go around like back forth till it's empty.
Yeah. Have the roofs ever been replaced?
No.
Really?
Those are blue roofs, and they were better steel.
Yep.
No, they were good. But them white ones, them early white ones, they just got holes in them.
Yeah. So you guys had these, and then Wayne or Nello built his about
Nello
the same
and
time?
my dad built the 2060s the same year.
When did Dale Anderson?
And then Dale, he's my second cousin, so
Yep.
he always was over here checking out this for years and years. Man, it was in probably the 80s when he built his. I think his is a 20 by 28. But he just always was amazed at that high moisture corn coming out of there. And it's like, because he was cob corn.
Yep.
So it was kind of, this is the one that sold him. But his dad was my mom's cousin. He was the one of those in the neighborhood. Oh, you guys are gonna go broke. Your dad's gonna go broke. You put up that harvester, and it's like at 13,000 was a lot of money back in the day, and but it was a good deal.
Yeah. Well, and then then your brother-in-law built.
Yep.
And
yeah,
both of them did, right? Because Ron had a corn unit, right?
No, I think Brian built that. Well, no, I think Brian Berg built that harvester.
Okay.
I don't think Ron ever did have a harvester.
Huh. Yeah.
Yeah. So then a few more got around toward Prescott, and Ralph put a couple up.
Right.
His wasn't through Brave though, I don't think, but
probably Freeburg.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Anyway, Ralph didn't take care of them, and so
Yeah.
That's one thing I loved about that is you can put 5 loads in and shut it, and then next week maybe 5 more loads. You get a little mold, but it would never be a lot, and so that's what helped us a lot was if you got caught with rain and you got hay down for 3 more days from now, you could shut it, and it just worked good for me.
Well, I always said that about the harvesters, where the beauty of them is you might plan on baling hay,
Yeah.
but it's going to rain.
Oh, yeah.
And you could
Which
put it.
they do now with wrapping round
Yep.
bales.
Yep.
That's what I say to my friend Pete. It's like, you're cheating. It's like, I used to have to sit there, and if that thing was full and I had hay down, it was going to get baled, and if it was going to rain, it was going to rain. And them guys go out and they round bale and wrap it, and then it's like, you cheaters.
But you could chop just a few loads.
Oh, yeah, I did
if you
that.
had room.
Oh, yeah.
And where
Because every time you put 5 loads in, and then 2 days later you can get 2 more loads in because
Yeah.
it's settled or whatever, you know.
where a stave silo, you got to raise the unloader, and then you're back off of feed.
Yep.
You know, where
Yeah.
you're always feeding
Yeah.
consistent feed.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, 20 by 60, you probably didn't have a lot left at the end
No,
of the year.
it went empty every year,
Yeah,
pretty much. Yeah.
which,
But I extended. I could kind of gauge it and feed enough hay, baled hay.
yeah. Do you ever think about putting up another silo? Like for,
Yeah, I even priced one for corn silage or something. I priced one once, and PCA just said, I don't think so. So I never did. But you know, yeah, I thought about it several times.
Were you looking at a harvester?
Yeah.
Or? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I got to the point of, geez, you know, this thing's 40 years old and look at it yet. I mean, it's perfect shape,
Yeah.
but the unloaders are what wears out. And epoxy floors will last forever, but yeah.
They're a neat silo. These blue tops are really cool.
Yeah, and they probably went to white top in about, I think
Actually,
this was right after this.
So the first white top you started seeing in 67.
Yeah, I was gonna say, this was built in 68 and it was probably a holdover or something, you know. And I know right after that there was, everything was white.
Yeah.
So
Instead of baling hay,
he went to haylage, so it was him and Nello Dodge, our neighbor,
yep,
put up these 2 haylage harvesters in 66. And, you know, everybody around thought there was no other blue silos right around here. Oh, them guys are gonna go broke, you know, and it's like, it was kind of a neighborhood joke for a while, and it's like, my dad, he knew how to spend money. He could do any math in his head, you know, and he knew how to spend money and make money, and so that's how they ended up here. But yeah, we could talk about the harvesters when we go down there, and it's one of the main reasons I took over this farm, because I was here when all we did all summer was bale little small squares, and then when I was 10 years old, he put up that harvester, and all of a sudden it's like, man, this is going good. Kathy and I, we hardly ever had help farming. She'd run the chopper and I'd do the chopping or unloading and chores, and so yeah. But we were small, 40 cows, you know, average.
And everything was here. Like all your land was close.
Yeah.
You weren't running.
Our building site is right in the middle of the 200 acres, so it's like I hardly do any road travel. There's 25 acres across the road. That's the only time I'm on the road. So safety-wise, staying off the road is like, I had no problem with that. So anyway, yeah.
So 78, you put a price on the farm.
Yeah.
And then you buy it in 82 or
83.
83. I
We had a
bet.
5-year option to purchase is what it was.
Okay, so I'm guessing in '78, the price kept going up for a few more years. But
Of land?
yeah,
Yeah, could have. I guess I can't remember that, but
but then it probably dropped down.
I
some
think
by
it was
83.
maybe, well, I bought the farm with the building site for $1,000 an acre is what it ended up, 132 acres.
Yep.
So that, what was the building site off of there? So maybe the land was 600 or 700 if you actually separated it.
Which,
And I think it got up to 1,000 for an actual acre of cropland for a while. But
yep.
yeah, then the 80s hit.
Yeah.
Yep.
And, the building site, 130 acres on this farm versus 130 acres on a different farm, the buildings were a lot of the value of the farm.
Yeah.
The house was almost, so when mom and dad were buying their farm when I was a little kid, the house was always secondary
Yeah.
to the farm.
Yep.
So you'd have a farm with a beautiful house, but the barn had stanchions and a manure loader instead of a barn cleaner,
Yeah.
and the silos were poor or something.
Yep.
That wouldn't be worth nothing. The next place, the house is barely anything, but they've got,
Yeah. Yeah, that's how this house, the original farmhouse here was much bigger. That patio out in front's got a basement under it, but it burnt to the ground in 1932 or 33. Got hit by lightning, and the fire truck with dirt driveway got stuck and never made it in. It was a huge thunderstorm. House burnt to the ground, and so then they built back the 2-story part of the house, and it's much smaller, but they had $2,800 from the insurance from the original fire, so that's what they spent.
Yep.
And so all of a sudden you got 6 kids and 2 parents in this little house. And yeah, the barn was probably more important to spend the money. They lived in a wood shack till the house was built, So,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, what my grandparents went through just shocks me, because their house burnt in 32, the Depression of 29, and they had dry weather in the 30s. I mean, it was several years in a row where they hardly got any crops. One year, my grandfather took some heifers down to the Lake Pepin bottoms for the summer to have something to eat. So how did they make it? You think I struggled through the 80s? I can't imagine. And then you go back one more generation, and he buys a 40 and has to clear it without a bulldozer.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, we had it pretty nice, even though it was a lot of work.
Well, I say that. I just did a post about that yesterday where people will give me a hard time and say that you always say that the past was better, or you're living in the past or something, and I go, well, the thing is, my great-grandpa, my grandpa, they didn't look at the next generation and go, well, they've got it worse than I do. We look at that today. We look at kids today and we say, man, they can't hardly buy a house.
Yeah.
Farms to get into farming, they almost can't afford it, etc. But the previous generations, every generation, things got easier until probably the baby boomers would be about like the peak.
Yep.
And then it's gotten harder ever since.
Yep.
And that's kind of
the cost to buy machinery or land. It's just gone so high that I have been sitting here trying to figure out what's going to happen. Are we just going to, I go back to the 90s. I was on the Ellsworth School Board for 9 years, but I was also on the Ellsworth Farmers Union Board.
Yep.
And this was before any mergers. So you got to see where the money was made in the co-op here. They had hardware, they had fuel, this was before LP got real big for heating. They had heating oil, you know.
Agronomy.
They had the agronomy, and back in the late 90s, the only thing that Ellsworth Farmers Union made good money in was LP. Everything else was a big loser. So all of a sudden it's like these mergers start happening. So like Baldwin and Ellsworth joined in the feed department, and then later on they joined everything. And then, you know, it all worked way down the line to now it's Elsivia. And then what's Elsivia sells off the gas station and
all the agronomy.
Yeah, and now this last year, all the agronomy sites. So, you know, we spent quite a bit of money on the Ellsworth feed mill, putting in overhead bins and everything, because we knew farmers were getting bigger and you have to have enough storage to supply their feed. And then all of a sudden it got all tore down, and now it's a gas station, and it just, they built a huge feed mill over by Menominee, and everything's trucked 30 miles for the farm anymore. And so,
and I remember as a kid at the Farmers Union where they'd have, you know, a guy would take his load up cob corn out of his pickup.
Oh yeah.
Drive it up there on the truck hoist, and they'd pick the
He'd
front
have a
wheels
rack on his pickup. Yep.
And they'd grind his feed, and then you'd pull around under the conveyor belt, and they'd throw the sacks.
Which, you know, like Ellsworth, people think, well, there's nothing going on in Ellsworth. Well, for us, we were 4 miles away. I was to the feed mill at least twice a week, if not 3 times, just picking up mineral or whatever. Yeah. And when you're there, you're also stopping somewhere else in Ellsworth. And now there's nobody going to the feed mill because there is no feed mill.
No.
And so you take all that business away, and it's like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and there was New Holland with Snows, and then Ellsworth Equipment.
Yeah, well, New Holland was in Ellsworth Farmers Union before before Snows.
Yep.
You know, and when I was a kid, you go buy your hay rake at the Farmers Union in Ellsworth.
And then they had International Trucks.
Yep.
And then
they had a nice shop in the basement to repair trucks, and they had a gas station upstairs where you did oil changes. And
did they sell Moline tractors here? Equity in River Falls had Moline.
I don't think it was Moline.
They had Massey though. I
maybe.
Believe.
I don't know. My dad was a John Deere guy. So.
Yeah.
There was a John Deere dealer in Ellsworth back in the day. You know, the Hooperts, and so yeah. Anyway,
it's not good when we've lost all that business.
Oh, it's terrible. And, you know, Ellsworth's trying to come up with new ways of keeping the town thriving, but it's hard when a business can't survive because, you know, I look at these kids like my daughter-in-law and son, they order groceries online and it's ready to pick up when they go through town, and they don't stop anywhere else. Well, that was half the thing, you know, stopping. And it's the same in the neighborhood. When we were kids, we were always visiting neighbors and having lunch or something at least once a week. Now you don't even know your neighbors. So.
Right. So well, everybody had to help.
Oh,
you know, you had to help your neighbors.
Yep. Although my neighborhood wasn't big on helping each other out. I think we were all small enough that we were so busy. I mean, if there was a problem, we'd help somebody out. But my wife's neighborhood down County D, that area, them guys did everything together. And then on Saturday night, they'd go to Bay City Ballroom and dance, you know, and then they'd go to the house afterwards and have their card party. And it's like that. I wish we'd had a neighborhood like that, but it never really worked around here. But
in over by me, those guys, you know, there was the Shoemakers.
Johnny.
Yep. And then you'd have Lance's, Schroeder's a little bit, and then there was Bud Salverson.
Yep.
And they all did field work together.
Yeah.
And a lot of them would buy similar equipment, so they always had parts for.
Yeah.
You know.
That's one thing I think. I was working on this old sprayer. It's probably 30 years old, and it wasn't working last week. So I had already bought my chemical for corn, and it took me 2 days to get it going, but I had to keep trying different things. You know, I broke a plastic hose fitting that's 1.5 inches, and that's where my my pump sucks out of the tank,
Yep.
and I couldn't get it sealed. So then you come up with plan. I was on my 5th different plan by the time I got it going. Well, you get these young kids out here. When I was a kid, or even young farmer, if something didn't work and it's Saturday at 3 o'clock, well, guess what? Nobody's open, and you better try and figure it out because the rain's coming and the hay bin needs to be baled. And so I think the generation now, not being on the farm, they aren't learning how to do
Right.
stuff for themselves, and it's like, it's kind of sad, but
Well, there was so much education, life skills that
yeah,
you just
Yeah.
learned on the farm, and
Yeah.
and I worry that we're losing that period.
Oh, yeah.
Because people aren't
Yeah.
growing up
yeah.
with this.
Yeah. And people don't communicate anymore. They, this actually, the internet has done a lot of damage, but I mean, it's great for information, but it's also done a lot of damage for communication between people. They just don't communicate anymore, but
Yeah, the social skills for a lot
yeah,
of people
you
is
can
going.
see it.
Yeah.
When I went to college in the 76 through 78 was when computers were coming around. Well, they had one big room that was one big computer, and you'd punch a card and tell the computer. We had to run a farm program and profitability and all that, and it's like, it was very complicated, but that computer was the size of this shop almost.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, now it's totally different, but
So
so anyway,
83, you take over. Things are tough in
Yep.
83,
Yep.
and they kept getting worse till 88
yep,
probably.
and then we had the 88 drought.
Yep. But
So
what was your? I mean, dairy stayed relatively decent though.
yeah,
didn't
it was, I think it stayed around $9, maybe even got up to 12 a couple times, but it was the interest rate at the banks that were killing you.
Which did that probably helped? I'm sure your dad made it a fixed interest rate when
Yeah, and it was a 30-year contract, and then he gave us a break when the interest rates did drop in the 90s probably, and he dropped it to 5% from 7, which was huge for a young family, but
Yeah.
he wanted us to succeed.
Right.
And I got 3 classmates and I that we all dairy farmed with about 40, 50 cows. And we got 14 kids between the 4 families. Not a one of us are having a son take over. That was my retirement plan. My dad enjoyed coming out here. If we had field work to do when it was milking time, he'd come out and run the tractor. I mean, that was huge for us, help.
Yeah.
And it never charged us $1, for that. And it's like, well, there's my retirement plan. Well, guess what? I'm still here. And it didn't happen. And all 4 of us are trying to figure out, well, now what? We try and figure out our will and our succession plan. And it's like, well, my son works at Minnesota Ag Group in Hastings, and he's making good money, but it's a rough job too, so maybe someday he'll want to come here and just kind of take it easy and do some cropping and that. But, for him to come here he's got 4 kids, it's like there's no possibility of making a living without off-farm income.
Right.
And so one thing my wife did in probably in the early 90s, she went to work at a bank in Ellsworth, and as a teller. If you know my wife, she's a people person. So she's out here helping me alone, and I said, you gotta go. I can handle what I'm doing. And she kept feeding calves and stuff, but I knew she needed the socialization of life, and she wasn't getting it here. So then she got into the middle school as a secretary, perfect fit for her because she was a people person and around all these people all the time. Then in about 4 years ago, she retires, and now it's just me and her because the kids are gone.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, how is this going to work? I was kind of sitting good when the kids left, and I was doing my dairy thing and she was working out. Nobody knew if I was working or not, and it was like I could do what I wanted here, but you always work. But anyway, I kind of razzed her. It's like, well, how are we going to get along now when we're around each other 24 hours a day? But, you know, and
Yeah.
it is tough for some couples when they do retire to, you know, you got to, I keep telling her, you got to do your thing, I'll do my thing. And, you know, me and my buddies will take off and go for lunch or something one day a week, or, you know, just to get away. And it's like, you got to keep socialized a little bit too. But
Oh yeah.
anyway, yeah,
88 drought.
yeah.
This is lighter ground over here.
Yeah.
Was it pretty tough? I mean, did you have enough feed?
No, we got enough corn in the small harvester for the cows, and then we bought a little dry corn for the heifer feed. But actually, I went to Sam Road, was in back of your dad's
Yeah.
place.
Yep.
He had an auction that year,
Yes.
and he had nice hay. You had good land over there. And Jimmy Hoschel bought standing hay from him, and then decided a day or two later that he didn't need it. And I was talking to Jimmy, and I says, well, I'll go over there. Jim had cut it, and I went over there and cut some too, and we got like 4 or 5 chopper boxes of haylage to put in the harvester. And that was enough to get us through, but it was sure, it was tight.
I remember they had all the CRP acres and everything were released.
Everybody was baling the junk just to get through, but yeah, it was a tough year. And I kept warning some of these young farmers. I say, we've had some really good crop years in the last 20 years, but be careful, because that one year can just, it was looking good till July 1st, and it quit raining, and that was it. You know, corn shriveled up, chopped a little silage.
Yep.
So, yeah.
90, and then 92 and 93 were a little tough
Yep.
because it was cold.
Cold and wet, and yeah, we got there was a few years I planted corn before my hay because you just needed to get the corn in, and it was so wet. And anyway, it just, every year is different, you know, and it's like this year, it's like, how can you get a better spring to work land? Even your wet ground you could just go right through.
Yeah.
So I was talking to you, our tile hasn't run once. We got some field tile on some heavier ground, hasn't run once even after the snow melt. So we're not excess moisture here. Seems like Eau Claire and north, they've been getting really good rain, but a little too much actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we're sitting about where we should be.
Yeah.
I'm pretty happy with
Yeah.
the way it looks.
Yeah.
But you get into the 90s. That was a pretty good time to dairy farm, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was. And then the kids got older to help, and it was getting easier, you know, and that's kind of when I got on the school board, because I could get away and the kids could finish chores and that. And financially, it was running. You know, I told my son once, I never had a savings account with more than $1,000 in it all the years I dairied. And when I sold the cows in 2013, all of a sudden you're selling corn or you're selling we did steers for 10 years after the cows. And it's like the money would stay in the bank quite a while compared to back in the day. You just didn't. Why are you going to have money at the bank making maybe 4 or 5% interest when you're paying 10 or 12 to farm credit? It's like, yeah. So.
You were saying you did some hogs. You were finishing hogs too?
We would buy feeder pigs. This was in the 90s. And all of a sudden we were doing better crop-wise. We went from maybe 100 to 125 bushels of corn an acre to now the 90s and early 2000s goes, and all of a sudden you're getting maybe 150 to 170. bushels of
Yeah.
corn, you know, and now you got a little extra corn. So we'd buy 100 feeder pigs from wherever we could find them and feed them out, take about 100 days, 2 batches a year, start like as soon as it would warm up in the spring and be done by Christmas time. And so that was our cash flow, you know, mortgage lifters, they always
Yeah.
called
Oh, yeah.
the pigs. And it did help us, you know. And so,
Because
yeah.
corn, I mean, you weren't set up for
We weren't.
for drying corn
No.
and
I did build the drying bin for in 1980. I threatened my dad I was going to go bigger ear corn for the young stock, and we had the harvester high moisture for the cows. And he says, "No, you're not." He says, "You put up a bin." So he kind of told me, "You're putting up a bin." So I did through Arnie Knutson, and that worked good too for us. But I never filled it. I never had enough acres to fill it over the harvester. And so that's where the dry corn come from. And then down the road, you'd have more dry corn. So started feeding pigs, and then we never kept our bull calves, which was kind of crazy, but this really worked good for us. So, and the kids, you know, the kids learned a lot, and one time they come home from Friday night bowling. We league bowled on Friday night in Red Wing, and the pigs are out. 100 pigs running all over. So here it is about 11 o'clock at night, and kids are out chasing pigs. Well, you know how you can chase a pig. You can't.
right.
So we finally got them in. But, you know, they talk about that day to this day. It gives them memories. But, yeah.
Were you feeding were you grinding feed out of the dry bin for the pigs? Or?
Yeah, I bought a feed mill and a couple pig feeders, and it just worked really good. We'd try different ways of feeding them with soybean meal and mineral from Vince Wood down in your area.
Yep.
What was the name of the feed company? I can't even remember it. It was like did they call it a high lysine mineral or something?
Well, there was high lysine corn.
Yeah, but we didn't have,
Oh, okay.
I never raised that, but it was a special mineral that you just mix with soybean meal, and then that's pretty much how I fed pigs. And when the cows left, we quit pigs and we went to steers, buying bull calves
Yep.
and feeding, actually trying both grinding corn or whole corn with pellets, which is what we ended up doing. Pretty easy.
Were you still using the harvester as high moisture corn then, too?
Well, no. I did for 1 or 2 years. I fed heifers for the big dairy next door and used haylage and high moisture corn. And then my haylage unit started spoiling haylage a little bit because the unloader got holes in the bottom from moisture and on the outer shell. And I just thought, yeah, I'm not going to do that anymore. The bunk feeder wore out, and so 3 years probably I used the little corn unit. Had a good unloader in it and a good floor. We put an epoxy floor in it years ago. Used a batch dryer, put dry corn in the harvester, and then sold it in the spring right away to Red Wing Grain or something for dry corn. But that's what I used the harvesters for since. Now they've been empty for years, and our small harvester was only 5,000 bushel, maybe 4,500 with the air bags in there. So it's perfect for 35, 40 cows, but it was too small to do anything more. So
Yeah, I've talked about that before, that sometimes guys were going to milk 50 cows or something, they'd put up a 20 by 60 or 20 by 70 corn unit because they're like, well, if we're building it, we might as well just build a bigger silo. Well, the problem is it doesn't keep as well.
no.
You know, I think it's good to get that corn out of there every year.
Yep, and we pretty much emptied it almost every year. At early years when we milked maybe 32 cows, we never got it quite empty. But yeah, it was about the right size.
Yeah.
So
That was a big deal going from picking corn to
we were cob corn back when I was little. This harvester went up when I was 12 years old. So I never got into cob corn too much other than watching my dad do it. And, you know, when you went from cob corn and cribs to a harvester, there wasn't as many rats either.
Right, right.
So, yeah.
So you're milking, 90s are pretty decent.
Yep.
When did you kind of start to notice we started losing a lot of dairy farms?
Probably after me. I sold in 2013, and I was one of the first dairy herds. I had my cows hauled up to Premier Livestock in Thorpe or Withy.
Yep.
And they came with 3 big trailers in the morning, hauled them up there, sold them that day. They didn't have a milking facility or anything. I was one of their first full herds in 2013. And I think it was after what I said was we were on a milk cow route or a bulk tank pickup for Ellsworth Creamery, and all of a sudden I was a 40 cow dairy. The milk truck was overflowing. I was his last stop and overflowing almost every day, you know, and he had to really watch how much he put in there. And there was another 40 cow dairy that sold. And so that was in the spring, March of 2013. By fall, that milk truck was full again without our 2 herds. So people were expanding cow numbers, but they were also getting more milk. And so that's when I thought, there it is, you know. All of a sudden, these small dairies, they just kept going and going, selling out, and they could do it. There was no dairy cow auctions like back in the day.
Yeah.
They would either haul them like I did away or sell them privately. And, you know, and a big dairy would absorb them. But we were tie stall herd, so that's why I brought my cows up there, up in that area. A lot of Amish, a lot of Mennonites. They are all tie stall cow herds. So I thought, yeah, I'm going to do that. So, but it might have been a little before I got out to where you started noticing, hey, something's changing.
Well, and I remember, I think it was 07. I bought a new disc spine, one of the few new pieces of equipment I ever bought.
Yeah.
And I think Tom had told me that one of them years right in there, like they sold 50, 60, 70 brand new disc spines.
Yeah.
You know, and today I don't know if Johnson Tractor that covers this area, if they sell 3.
Yeah. You just don't see hay out anymore, and if you do, it's for the big dairy, and you know they'll cut hay for 3 days and chop it the next, and it's all private operators that do that for him, and it's like, very few small herds, even horse farms don't do their own hay anymore hardly. But anyway, Bob Seward milks 1,200 cows. Well, he bought that from the Leonard boys, and they were milking 120, and that was a big herd back in the day. And all of a sudden he goes from 120 and probably up to 400 and then 800, and back then you could get the labor, so why wouldn't you expand? Which I think my thinking was always the immigrant cheap labor back in the 90s and early 2000s is kind of what helped them grow and kind of helped push us out. And I'm not going to say I'm against immigrant labor, but it sure made it easy for them to expand.
And I always say that then, if the big never would have got big, milk prices would have kept up. Yeah. Because small farms would have had to be.
There was one year I sold milk for $22 for a while, 100.
Yeah.
This was probably, I don't know if it was after 2010, because in 2009 I also sold milk for $10 for a while.
Yeah.
And it's like, it was, how can you plan anything when
Well,
it's,
and when you got into dairying, like out of college, milk prices didn't fluctuate 25 cents
No.
throughout the year.
It pretty much stayed around that $9. And when we hit $10 milk, it's like, boy, this is okay. But yeah.
And it got so volatile,
Oh.
which I always thought part of that volatility came in like the late 90s when they put it on the CME.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they changed the milk, the
they all
milk
seem-
pricing formula got changed to it. Because
Yeah.
it used to be based off your proximity to Green Bay, right?
Yeah.
And then they changed some stuff in there. And
it just got really difficult to plan anything. And it's like I told you, I've never bought a new tractor in my whole life. And I've only bought one new pickup my whole life. But you just couldn't do it. But it didn't cost so much for a used anything back in them days either. I mean, I bought some newer stuff later on, hay bine, like you say, chopper, things that I knew I would really need. It's like when you got good hay, you want to go and not break down. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, that was one piece of equipment that generally didn't sit outside.
Nope. Yep.
Guys would find a spot to keep the hay and equipment in because it had to go.
Yep.
And
that was another thing. My dad never had storage for machinery, so everything sat outside, and it was all older, used stuff anyway. But, you know, he just had a work ethic in him to make things go. But he built that Quonset shed in 1960, and it was half for sow. He farrowed sows. It's got a cement floor in it with pens, and so then, you know, the pig diseases came, and it kind of ended the pig business around here. Rhino, coronavirus, whatever it was. And it's like one day he farrowed sows down there, and he had the sows separated. And one day, us little kids, my mom and dad went away, and I think we had a babysitter, and you could hear a pig squealing down there. Well, he come home, and one sow got in with another and killed the doggone sow, you know. And it's like, well, why didn't you go down there and do something? It's like, we had no idea what was going on. We were little kids, but yeah, he built that for sows. So he was into a little bit of everything. He rented a lot of land too, but he rented on shares, you know. So he would go bale hay that's all we did all summer, is bale everybody else's hay and mow their hay and take home our share and mow ours. And it's like, it was work.
I remember that was really common, was 50-50 on hay.
Yep. And that's the way you just operated. So, yeah.
That all. So. And now, I mean, the acres, you just don't see the hay acres.
No.
Like there were.
No.
You don't see the small grain acres.
No. I seeded 3 acres of hay just to give it a try this spring, and it's like, well, I'm not going to get a combine in to do 3 acres. Nobody does straw and oats anymore hardly, but I'm just going to sell it to the neighbor if he wants it for wrapped hay for heifers or something. But I just wanted to see. I've been liming quite a bit again lately, because all of a sudden after 20, 30 years of farming, the pH started getting down there, and so I've been liming again. I just wanted to see how it looked. So, yeah. Yeah,
I did some numbers on that about, I took 1980, 87, 1982, and then 2017 and 2022 in the ag census.
Yeah.
And I put up the numbers, and hay was the #1 crop in 82 and 87 in Pierce County. Corn acres have not changed that much.
No.
We still raise really close, you know, to what we've always done.
Yeah.
Now the corn for grain acres changed because there was a lot more corn silage.
Right.
But corn acres haven't changed that much.
Yeah.
But so corn would be #2, and then the #3 crop would have been oats.
Yeah.
And then barley would have been in there.
Soybeans wasn't in there.
it was way down
Yeah.
there. There was just,
Yeah.
5,000 acres of soybeans or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And then you compare that with the 2017 and 2022, the hay acres dropped by over 60%.
Yeah.
The small grain acres are just, there's handfuls
Oh, yeah.
of acres left is all there is.
We used to bale. We needed the straw,
Yeah.
but the oats was fine for the young stock too. But we always needed straw for the dairy barn, and I don't know. And then the longer you went, the less people were willing to come and combine straw and oats because it was tough, and the weather never seemed to cooperate. But back in the day, the neighbors all did their threshing crew, and that was a neighborhood get together every year. And anyway, getting back to raising hay, you know how many dollars I got out of government programs raising alfalfa?
Oh, yeah.
Zero. And
Right.
so all of a sudden, this is what the government getting involved has not helped the farm situation out here at all.
No.
Even though people think, oh, you're getting like my brother, you're getting another check this spring for cropping because the crops are so poor. And I says, yeah, the problem is the check I'm getting as a small farmer is going to buy maybe a third of my soybean and corn seed.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not that big a deal, but that helps the fertilizer and the seed companies.
Props up they don't have to lower
They
their
don't
prices.
have to lower their price because I'm going to pay it.
Yep.
And so, anyway, get the government out of everything, I say, but that's never going to happen because, a situation here is a big crop farmer down your way now grew up on a house on our driveway with no farm background or anything, and he's now several thousand acres. And it's like, well, how did that happen? I grew up on a farm, and it's like I dairied and I didn't get those crop payments,
Right.
But then down your way, there was a bunch of land always available to buy. In this area, it just never was sold, and it still ain't.
Yeah. That's what Kurt said why he went over.
That's Tom Sitz was our loan officer, and he said, go down County D. There's always, and it's really good land. My brother-in-law and my wife grew up down that way, and it's good land. And there's land to rent and then land to buy down the road, and it's worked out really good for him.
Well, a buddy of mine that grew up in Man Valley, and his dad sold the farm when he was in high school. And we always talked about that when we were, younger.
Yeah.
When I bought my home farm now, back in '04 or whatever, instead of that, what we should have done was move down towards Plum City.
Yeah.
Because the land in Ellsworth was over twice as much as it was in Plum City.
Yeah.
Because we were closer to the cities.
Yeah.
Where, and that's here. You're just closer to.
Yep. Yep. And, my dad passed away in 2021, and he owned 25 acres. He was a realtor, his last 20 years of life. And so he takes on this neighbor farm, was a 40, and the guy wanted the building site, but he didn't want 40 acres. So my dad bought 25 of the 40 to make the deal go. Well, then that was in the late 90s that he bought that. And he kept that, and I tried to buy it from him several times, and he says, I just kind of like to be involved in the farm a little, and fine, So then he dies. Well, I offered him like $1,000 an acre, and then he dies, and then now it's worth $5,000, and I had to buy my siblings out. But it's like it was a good, safe place to put money. Land is a good place where, they keep talking, the banks are going to shut down and all this stuff is going to happen. And it's like, well, what do you want to own? You want to own assets, But all through our life, the old saying of cash poor and asset rich, we're rich, but until the day we sell, we aren't.
No.
So anyway.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that land did that.
Yeah.
Because it's made it too expensive
Yeah.
for people that young people that want to farm to
Yep.
get in, they
Yep.
can't.
Yep.
And then families,
Yep.
if you have one child that wants to farm, the farm is worth way too much money.
Well,
He can't
it's
buy
like,
people out.
I never thought of it that way, but I've been reading articles on that too, and it's like, why does one generation have to buy out the previous generation and the previous generation? And we just keep buying the same land in the family, and it's like, well, you got to have some money to retire on, but there is regulations that you have to sell your land for a certain price, and you have to pay a certain interest. That went way back when I bought, and it's like it's still to that way to this day. But I grew up here, and I farmed through the 80s and 90s when it was fairly tough in the 80s, and I learned one thing from Tom Sitz, my farm credit guy. He says, make sure your assets are the same as your age, your net worth. And it's like, so if you're 40 years old, you should own 40% of everything, and it's like I kind of stuck with that all through the years. Well, there's no way to do that anymore now.
Yeah.
When the land is so high priced, it's like it just isn't going to happen. And it's like, well, how is this land going to get paid for if it keeps going up and up? We're just kind of like the co-ops. We just keep getting bigger and bigger and buy everything out, and now Ag Partners has pretty much cornered the market in this area for fertilizer and crop expenses, and they do a good job. They're a great co-op, but there's no competition in the area much.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. And another thing I learned from a World War II vet was I was operating small, little equipment. I'm seeding oats one day with a little 10-foot grain drill in this tractor, and on the road, I come to the headlands, and on the road goes a neighbor with a quad track tractor, huge equipment, and it's like, geez, I look kind of foolish out here. And I told this guy, Don Johnson was his name. He was in the World War II on D-Day and got injured. So you knew how to respect him. So he says, you keep your eyes on your side of the fence and you'll be fine. And it stuck with me all those years. And it's like, yeah, who cares what he's driving? It's like, I'm happy and I'm doing fine. But it took us many years to get debt-free. That's why we sold the cows in 2013. All of a sudden, if I sold the cows, I could be debt-free. And it was a 30-year contract. I paid my dad off. And he says, I'm going to miss those monthly payments. It's like tough. I'm not,
Yeah.
But he bought his dad out here too. So, yeah. Anyway.
I guess that's what worries me is that there isn't that opportunity.
No.
And that's what I would like to see is that you didn't get into farming to get rich at it. You did it because you wanted to farm.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed cows, and the reason I sold the cows in 2013 was I was just wore out and tired and out of debt.
Yep.
And so I don't need to work 7 days a week anymore. So, yeah.
And I think that there's other young people. It irritates me when I hear people say nobody wants to work that hard anymore. But you do that for yourself.
Yep. My son would if he could make a living here without getting thousands of acres to operate. I think he would do it. But he sees the writing on the wall. You can't raise 200 acres of crops and make a living and milk 40 cows.
No.
So I don't know.
The whole thing kind of.
But maybe it'll turn around and come back some. I don't know.
Well, the one thing I think we got going around here is we are close to the cities.
Yeah.
And I think you've got to. We don't like the cities being this close, but on the other hand, there's markets there.
Yeah.
You got to.
Oh yeah.
Because like corn and soybeans, that's just a get big, get big, get big.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah. And for me and when I retired from dairy, I can still do that. I had the machinery without going into more debt, and it's easier, spring and fall. And I never raised beans till I sold the dairy. Now I'm half beans, half corn, and a little hay. So it's worked for me, but, it's going to get to a point where it just ain't going to pay, and it's already probably there this year. The last couple of weeks, the corn price and bean price has just tanked, and it's like, I don't know, you got to know your operating costs and when to sell. I've pre-booked some corn and beans for this fall, but I didn't expect quite this big a drop. I'm not a gambler, so I'm not going to,
Yeah.
I didn't book much corn until I had it planted anyway.
Right. No.
So, yeah.
It's a different,
Yeah.
it really is different, and it gets tighter and tighter on the commodity side, because it's like anything. If there's less work,
Yeah.
and there's less risk,
Yeah.
because they've more government involvement, so there's less
Yeah,
risk.
the more the government gets involved, and
Less risk, less reward.
yep.
And that's, I don't know that that's good. And like I like to say with the dairy thing, or even with pigs, etc.
Yeah.
There was, when you didn't want to milk cows anymore by the time you had got to your age.
Yeah.
But when you were younger, you didn't have a lot of money,
No.
but you could work.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
That was your that's what you brought to farming, was your ability to do the work.
Yep.
So the young guys could milk the cows, they could farrow the pigs, they could do that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And when you got all these big CAFOs and everything else, and they brought in a bunch of hired labor, you devalued that young person's, work ethic.
Yep.
So now, milking 40 cows by yourself isn't worth what it was.
And you
years
don't
ago.
have the support out there to do that anyway.
Right.
You don't have Val dealer or Surge dealer within 10 miles, back in the day. And it's like, you don't have the machinery dealer close by anymore, and nobody sells this small stuff anymore. It's either hobby stuff or big stuff. And it's like, I don't have enough horsepower tractor. I'd love to go vertical till or something like that, but I don't have enough horsepower to pull that. And so it kind of limits me at this age to do anything modern. But, we got to decide if we're going to sell or rent the land out here real soon, because I just can't do it anymore. So my wife's trying to downsize, because we do go to Florida. We never got away when we dairied, so we go to Florida for the month of March now every year, just to get away, because we never did that. And now maybe if we retire completely from farming, we'll go a little longer or something. But she's trying to downsize. The problem is everything she wants to downsize is my stuff. So it's like, well, you look around, it's like I've never moved, and we sold half of our equipment when we got rid of the steers. We sold all our hay equipment, all our cattle equipment online, which worked out really good for us through Hanson Young. And that was 4 years ago. So we got half the equipment that we used to have. It's just planting and tillage, a little harvest equipment now, but I'll have to show you my combine. It's older than my girls. It's a 1980 model there too. So
so back when you were farming, did you have your own combine, or did you hire Norman?
We hired Norman early to do our oats, but I don't think he was set up to combine corn. For some reason, we hired a Holocheck from over this toward Prescott for years. And then my brother married Luann Anderson, and her dad, Hook Bob Anderson. For many years, he did my custom combining. And I'm not, I'll be the first to admit, I'm not a mechanic. I never liked mechanics. I was a cow guy. And so a combine is mechanics.
Yep.
So when he quit, then all of a sudden I had already bought a batch dryer Toxawick from the Leonards when they retired. So now you can't hire a guy to come in here and do 2,000 bushels of corn 5 times, you know. So I bought my own used one from Minnesota Ag Group, but it belonged to Danny Leonard for years, and Noah Lansing owned part of it.
Yep.
It's a 1460, one of the original
Axial flows.
rotaries, you know, and it does a beautiful job, but it's got 2,600 hours on it, you know. It's how old? 46 years old.
Yeah.
So it's like, it works for me, but my son also works for Minnesota Ag Group, so he can work on it a little. I just hate mechanics. I hate it because nothing comes apart right, and it don't go together right, and it's like, I don't have the patience.
Yeah.
So I put a fuel pump on this spring, and that was my major mechanics job, you know, and I screwed that up because now one of the lines got threaded wrong, and that's leaking, and
Yeah.
so anyway, everybody, and that's what makes farming great, is you can be a good at a lot of things, but if your heart is in one part and not another, it still works. You know, I wasn't a mechanic.
Yeah.
I'd never welded in my life, you know, because I had Barry Behringer next door, or
Right.
you know, stuff like that. You just knew what you were good at and stay away from what you weren't good at.
And
So,
yeah, they taught so many people so many skills.
oh yeah.
That just that you can't replicate.
That's one thing I was thinking. Jeff is 41 now, and he has been out of helping me much because he works out, you know, at the machinery dealer, who was real busy in the spring and the fall when I could use him. But he wouldn't even know what smart stack corn is, because back in the day everything was conventional corn.
Yep.
And no GMO. So he has no idea about seed, and the spray chemicals change so much, you know, and it's like, back in when I grew up, it was all atrazine, 3 pounds of atrazine, and it's like, they think Roundup's bad.
Yeah.
I think atrazine was the bad one, but.
Then you'd cultivate too.
Oh yeah, I grew up with a 50 John Deere 2-row cultivator, and I was thinking of that the other day. When you got off row, you only wrecked 2 rows. Well, then you go to 4 and you go to 6-row cultivator in the back. If you get off, you're wrecking 6 rows now.
Yeah.
So yeah, we cultivated everything, and I think it might get back to that.
Well, it's getting tougher and tougher. I mean, so I'm 100% non-GMO corn again.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I'm happy to hear that, because I've been trying to work towards that, and now it's like, well, at this age, I'm just not going to do that. And so I'm probably on my last crop year. I don't know for sure, but anyway, yeah, conventional corn, it might come back, and cultivating might come back.
Well, and conventional corn is really good from the standpoint of, I say this all the time, when Roundup Ready came out, we didn't know the destruction it was going to do.
Yeah.
Because when you think back when you took over,
Yeah.
how many different seed companies were there? How many different farmer dealers sold seed?
Yeah.
I mean,
there was quackgrass.
Right.
So we didn't have the erosion.
Right.
But Roundup eliminated quackgrass completely, you know.
And it took away all these small seed companies.
Yep.
So the competition went away.
Yep.
And then the price of seed just, you know,
And the big guy bought out the little guy. Seed company, whatever it was, feed, all this stuff.
Because, well, you got a Jake's seed up there. You
my
know,
dad planted Jake's seed for years.
Yep.
And my grandpa actually, back in the, what year was he farming here? Probably the 30s and the 20s and 30s and 40s. He was raising seed corn for himself. You know, they raise their own seed corn.
Yep.
You know, and so he was pretty big into the genetics of corn back in them days, but not like today's genetics. But yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
Jake's was bought out by Mycogen.
Yeah.
And then Mycogen was bought out by Dow.
Yeah.
And
We even raised some seed corn for Jake's a few times when I was a kid.
Really?
My dad did, yeah. And then 1 or 2 years he would raise some, what did we have? Green beans for the canning company in New Richmond back in the day, just for a little rotation, you know.
Okay.
And so, yeah, it's crazy.
No, it's too bad that I think about what that did to the industry.
Yeah.
You know, and seed costs. I mean, I can remember in high school, if you bought just like silage blend seed
Yep.
from like Browns,
Yeah.
it was like $50 in the late 90s.
Yeah. It better grow 12 feet high or something.
Yeah.
Some of these hybrids today, I planted some rank smart stack last year, and Mike Hildebrand, I says, what in the world is going on? I don't want 12 or 10 foot tall corn, because the chances are that's what's going to go down before
Yeah.
it's harvested. But anyway, and then you got all that fodder to get rid of.
And then, you know, we've gone to where fungicide
Yep.
is going on the corn. Well, at least with the shorter corn, you can do it with a ground rate,
Yeah.
you know.
You know, and now I thought that was maybe something for the future, but now some of this corn, like I go to Acker's plot day in the fall, and they bring their agronomists in, and you know the nodes there's less distance between the nodes of the corn, but you want to keep it off the rock too. I mean, I picked up a couple rock with my combine thinking I'm off the ground, and it's like, that's not good. So it's like, I don't want it too short either.
Right, I can, I've done that where it's, you know, I'll never forget, probably 06, 07 like that, I was combining, I was milking 3 times a day.
Yeah.
And I got done with the late milking, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go fill the gravity boxes for high moisture corn.
Yeah.
And so I got in the combine, and I'm tired anyways. And it's fall, so it was cold.
Yeah.
So I turned the heat on in the cab of the combine, and I'm combining along, and I'm doing kind of barely keep my eyes open. And it was some shorter corn in that one spot, and I had the head down, and all at once I hear the slip clutches on the head.
Yeah.
What the? And I look, run a rock into the snapping rolls.
That scared the daylights out of me last fall. I got one in between the gathering chains, and all of a sudden it's slipping, and it's like, I just jumped. I couldn't believe how loud it was, that slipping, and it's like, anyway.
But that, you know, I think when, you know, when Jake's to Mycogen, and Mycogen had that TMF corn back in, came out in the 90s.
Yeah.
Gosh, peepers and youngs would plant that. I swear that stuff, the tassel touched the ceiling.
Charlie Hager did too, and it's like, yeah.
I mean,
we didn't do a lot of corn silage on this farm. My dad had a 1440 for heifers. We always filled that with corn silage. And he was all haylage after he went to harvest here. Well, then down the road, I was a little bit short of haylage every year, so then bags started coming out. We did some bag corn silage.
Yep.
And went to a stationary TMR mixer, which helped me work-wise, because my barn was really hard to work in, and I had 3 feet between the stall and the wall, and all you could use was a wheelbarrow to feed cows. So TMR mixer at least made it 2 trips around the barn every day. But it was a heaping wheelbarrow to 2 cows. So and my feed room was one level, and my barn was another, and my milk house was another. So that's no wonder I've had my knee replaced. So but
the corn silage thing, I don't know, them big tall corns, all your weight, all your silage comes from the grain anyways. You know, the fodder doesn't add as much to it, so they'd fill them silos up with that TMF, you know, and have tiny ears and giant fodder, and the silo would settle, you know, you'd lose a third of it overnight.
Well, I got a buddy that he would take first crop hay off and then he'd plant corn.
Oh,
Well, some years that didn't even get an ear, but he'd chop it and put it in the silo, and it's like, that's not going to do you a whole lot of good, you know. It's just roughage is what it was, but.
well, Lee Allen and I were talking about that one time, you know, and he was younger. In your mind, you know, when you're a dairy farmer, you're like, we got to get feed off everything we can.
Yeah.
So you take hay off, or you'd, or like guys take their rye and then they're going to plant
beans
a crop or whatever. Yeah.
Yep.
And it's like, well, actually, sometimes if you figure it out, the yield loss.
Yeah. It usually, I did a lot of experiments over the farm because I was trained in ag, got a teaching degree. So you're trained in soils and animals and nutrition and all these different areas. And so you got to experiment over the years. I do it in the garden a lot now, different things or different planting depths. And, you know, you're always doing tests and see what works and what doesn't. And so you just got to keep expanding your thinking and keep involved. But that's one thing I learned from my dad. He lived to be 94, but he kept moving until COVID hit. Then that was the end of him because he sat.
Yep.
You know, but he kept moving. He golfed whenever he could and just keep moving, and no matter what. But so we got to decide here soon what to do. Are we going to stay and, you know, if you go to Florida for 3-4 months, now do you dare to leave a house empty and, you know, stuff like that. So that's our big problem now, trying to figure out how to end our life gracefully. Kathy and I have had broken bones, and our daughter's an orthopedic nurse at TRIA on 94 in Woodbury, and she calls us her job security. So, yeah.
But you got to be attached to the farm because you've never been anywhere else.
No, yeah, never moved, and so, but it is nice to get to a point where we were so tied down, we took the kids to Duluth once, and we took them to the Dells once. And that was our main 2 vacations all the years they grew up.
Yeah.
And so now it's nice to get away and just see what the rest of the world is all about. The country, anyway. Yeah.
Do you want to do some far out traveling? And
I'm not going to go anywhere other than the U.S. We like Florida a lot, but I probably would never move there for the summer. We like Tennessee a lot, but then, you know, Grandma's got grandkids around here, and problem is they grow really fast too. Our grandson, the oldest one's 20 years old already, and so anyway, they grow up and have their own life. So it was a good place to raise kids. I got 3 daughters, and they know how to work. Somebody says, well, you would never move to Florida. I said, have you ever been in a haymow in July or been combining oats and unloading oats in July or August? It's not fun. I mean,
yeah.
So.
Well, Florida in the summertime is worse than here in the winter.
Maybe, but you sit for 3 months in air conditioning down there, and you sit for 3 months up here with a furnace. So at this age, what's the difference? You know?
Right. I don't know.
So, everybody has their thing, but
I say all the time though that we've got like 5 months out of the year, 4 to 5 months that are just perfect to live here.
Yep.
And then you've got about, you know, another maybe 4 months that are
you can handle it.
Yep. And then, but I mean, there's 3 that it's horrible.
Yep. Oh, we had some rough days when it was cold. The worst was to get tractor and spreader running every day, no matter what the weather.
Did you ever think about putting in a manure pit?
Well, I did, but our barn's right by the driveway. So where are you going to put the pit, you know? And it's like,
because you could have put a piston pump and then put.
Then, you know, I had like Pete Christensen put one in, and a couple other guys, and then all of a sudden in the spring, they got all this manure to haul, and mine's already out there.
Right.
But it worked. It's just, there wasn't many winters I couldn't get out almost all the time. I did go with a front wheel assist tractor to get my manure out in the last 10 years we dairied, but this was my main manure tractor for years. If it got too deep, you just piled it for a while. But yeah.
Did you ever look at like a slurry store or anything when?
No, I never did. I didn't put either one of these harvesters up, and so no, I didn't think we were big enough to make it fly.
Yeah.
40 cows, and I was one that was never going to switch cows. I didn't care how much money extra I could have made. There's no way I was going to switch cows. Because I was always alone.
Yep. Well, it seemed like, I don't know, you're better off to just keep a barn full of really good cows.
That's the way I looked at it. We had some registered cows. Looking back on it, I would have probably ended up better financially if I'd have just avoided registered cows. Because you're always going for this. We had a couple really good ones, but you were always breeding with the top AI bulls, which cost you more money. And this was before crossbreeding beef cattle to dairy or anything like that. But, when, was it Tri-State came out with sex semen, I think the first. They came to our Holstein meeting one winter and talking about heifer semen, buying sex semen and getting heifers. And I says, you're going to make my steer worth more than my heifer. And she looked at me and says, no, that'll never happen. Within 5 years, they were pretty close in price because there was a little bit of shortage of steers. And it's like, that's one thing I've found in life. School board, church boards, all these things. You just voice what's in your head, because there's people that will support you, but there's always somebody that's going to oppose you. So I got in trouble a lot for saying things that, church board, whatever it was, school board. If you're on a school board, sooner or later you're gonna tick off the taxpayer, the teacher, the parent, whoever it is, sooner or later. But I got through that pretty well, and it went. It was a good experience.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that that sex semen really changed everything.
Yep, it really did. And I never used it, and I never used the BST.
Yep.
I just thought the creamery didn't really want it, and I'm not going to do that. So I never, to me, it's like you're putting more stress on the cow. And, if I got 70 pound average per day, that was good, back in the 90s and that. And then you talk to the big dairy next door when I'm feeding his heifers. Well, he's getting like 95 pounds a day. Well, that tells me it was about cow comfort,
Yeah.
I mean, you look at a cow laying in sand and walking around free and eating whenever they want. It was different than a tie stall herd. But I ruined more heifers coming in, springing heifers, until I got mattresses by getting banged up on concrete tie stalls. They weren't, they just couldn't handle that unless you broke them in really easy. So mattresses was one of my top investments for keeping dairy cows.
Did you ever think about expanding the dairy or doing like a freestyle setup at one time?
I did when Jeff was maybe high school. Jeff was really good with cow milking and that.
Yep.
But I could tell his heart wasn't in it. His older sister, Katie, there was my main cow milker. That girl, she loved showing cows. Mm-hmm. She's like your daughter. Yep. She just loved it. We took cattle to the fair and she'd show them, and then she'd go into showmanship on Saturday afternoon, and I say, don't you want to be down rides with your friends. She says, no, I love this.
Yeah.
You know, so it was great. The problem with her was after high school, she met an Army boy, and off they are in southern Arkansas State and Kansas City, and he took her away from me. Anyway, she was my main tractor driver too for many years. And Jeff was good at it all. You just could tell his heart wasn't into dairy.
Yep.
And if it ain't in dairy, don't do it. And so I think he had made up his mind. I know he'd love to be here cropping, but you just can't do it with an outside income. So,
does your daughter have an interest in, raising a family here? And
no, her husband was in the Army for 20 years, so when she married him, she was just out of here, and now they live in Hudson. But no, she never mentioned that. I don't think she kind of grew out of it, and found out there's other ways to make a living, and now she's a nurse and makes good money. And so my other two daughters, not so much farm.
Yeah.
They love growing up here. The older they get, the more they appreciate growing up here. But when they were here, they weren't real happy campers. So I got lucky with Jeff and Katie, and Kathy was my main help for many years. But I could tell it was hard on her body, and so we get to this age, and now we're a little bit crippled up, but we get around and do stuff. But she had a stroke when she was 37, but we survived. We stuck together, and the kids helped a lot. The kids helped a lot after that. She worked at it really hard and came out of it really well, but it's something you don't expect. And my dad's the old Norwegian, so he comes out here after that, and she's in kind of rehab, and he says, "What's the matter with you?" I says, "Well, I'm kind of depressed." And you know what his advice was? The old tough Norwegian, "Get over it." That was it.
Yeah.
It's like, this is the way you're raised back in them days, and that's the way he was raised.
Oh, yeah.
You just work, you don't complain, and that's what I say about my kids, is the people they have worked for love them because they show up, they work,
Yep.
and they don't complain. They get tired of working with people that come in every day whining, and my one daughter works for the government, the Dakota County, and they come in there and they just whining about something all the time, and it's like, I just come in happy to have a good job and do my job, and she loves her job. But this is what farming teaches this generation, and now we're kind of losing that.
Yeah.
That, it's just...
There's some about livestock makes people... It's kind of a good education for having kids.
Right.
Because you start to realize there's something that needs you no matter what.
It's got to get done.
Yep.
And they seen that. One Christmas morning, I turned the milk pump on and nothing. The motor blew. Well, who's open on Christmas morning to come and fix anything? I didn't have a spare motor. Took me all morning to find one. I go get it, I put it in, it didn't work. Now it's like noon. I haven't morning milking. And all the family, I sent them, go to the relatives for Christmas. I'll figure this out. I called Dean Hines, and I says, tell the milkman not to come yet, because I haven't even milked. He says, well, we got a motor in our shop. So I went up there and I got milking at 2 o'clock. Well, this is what happens. It's like, I couldn't go to Christmas. I had to get the cows milked. And it's like, this is the stuff you go through. But anyway.
Yeah, it teaches you. I mean, I've had that talk with my daughter when she kind of skips on something with chores. And I go, they can't.
Yeah.
If you don't do it, they can't do it themselves.
Yeah. There was one time Kathy and I were so sick with the flu, and we're laying in bed in the morning, and I says, "Are you gonna milk?" And she goes, "Nope." "Are you gonna milk?" You know, neither one of us could hardly move, but she got up and did it anyway.
Yeah.
So that was the main down thing about being on your own. No one was there to really, we could get milkers on a weekend or something, but no one was there on the really tough days that you needed help. But, I knew that going in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I can remember being sick,
Yeah.
milking, and like when I owned the Quinn farm, I remember the cow was milked.
Yeah.
And then I went to my pickup and just crawled in. Maybe I swept the mangers in to make them eat that for a few minutes.
Yeah.
And for a half hour, 45 minutes, you just laid in your pickup, and then it's like, okay, now they gotta get fed.
Yep.
And you gotta but that does teach you.
Oh.
This has to get done.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I just feel bad for the generation missing out on the freedom of farming in a way, kind of on your own. There was one time my son Jeff, 41, and then Lance Jakes graduated with him, and there was a Samuel boy, Adam I think his name, and they all wanted to farm.
Yeah.
Well, none of them ended up farming because they just knew it wasn't going to happen. And it's like, I sat there and I thought, how can we get these guys together and own a farm on shares or something, and everybody puts in their labor and their money, but part of that is also having their spouses accept that, and it's like, it's a tough deal. But I thought that was the only way these young kids could have really made it work. And it's kind of what the big dairy is doing here with hired labor, but it would have been all their own shares.
I have thought about that if you had a few neighbors that all milk cows, and they formed a corporation, but you all provided your own labor, and
I think a little bit of that happened.
Yeah,
but
and maybe that's how some of these super large dairies like that Ridge Breeze or whatever, that's maybe how they started out. Yeah. That's not how they operate now.
Right.
But
I just have racked my brain trying to figure out how to help the next generation, and it's like the longer it takes, the higher the land price goes, and milk price is like, man, when they told me this winter it was down around 14, it's like, I got 14 many years. I milked cows 30 years ago, and it's like, you just can't survive on that.
And I think, to me, it's, first off, we need to get outside people out of it, outside investment out of agriculture, and that's, like 1031s.
Yeah.
There's no reason these 1031s should get abused the way they are.
Yep.
If you own a farm right on the outskirts of a city, and the city is swallowing it up, you should be able to 1031, sell that and go buy a farm somewhere else.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be able to sell your grocery store chain and go buy farmland as an investment. That's not right.
Yeah.
That drives up values. And
and
if you're going to do a 1031, it shouldn't be like if you guys say, well, I'm going to sell here, and I'm going to buy land as in Iowa, we're just going to rent it out.
Yeah.
And we're going to go live in Florida. That's not right either.
No.
You should have to farm it.
Yeah, I think you're right. You know what really, farmers are put in a bad situation. It's like going back, we had 2 girls in college and 1 son in Votech the same year. So you're trying to figure out how are we going to pay for this and get a student loan for them. Well, guess what? Oh, you own a farm, your assets, you don't qualify. Your assets are too high. And it's like, yeah, but we're living like poor people here,
right,
and we couldn't get a loan. And it's like, well, this makes sense. Yeah, they just disadvantage the farmer all the way around. It's like my brother Carpenter says, you mean you're selling that steer without even knowing what you're going to get for that steer. Well, you kind of know what you're going to get, but in the market day, if they don't like that steer, you're going to get 20 cents less than the top. And it's like, well, what am I going to do about it? You know, he just couldn't believe you sell stuff and don't even know what you're going to get.
Well, that's, I think, a lot of this government money that gets put into commodity programs and stuff like that, that should be going to fund co-op. Like Egg Partners is a co-op, but it ain't really a co-op anymore. You know what I mean? Like it's a business.
Yeah, I know.
You should have small co-ops where, you know, you've got small dairies could all join a co-op together. If you look at like Organic Valley, they get big money out of that milk, and they sell out. Like they need more and more milk for that all the time. But I keep saying, I don't think people even necessarily need organic. I think they want to know, there's certain, how are the cattle raised? No extra hormones, which that drives me nuts too, because people say, well, I don't use BST, so we don't have added hormones like organic. And I go, yeah, but are you giving them Lutalice and
or feeding them Roundup corn or any of that?
Like it's like there's people that would be just fine with not being organic, but they want to know where it's raised and it's small. You know, the cows get out on pasture.
This is what went on. Like I think it was when Trump first got in, and it's like he's trying to get a deal with Canada and Mexico on country of origin labeling.
Yeah.
And it's like it wasn't even allowed. It's like, don't you in America want to know where your beef is coming from? I don't want to eat Mexican beef if I can help it. I don't know. I don't know how they raise it. And so, you know, it's always been a fight against the government telling us what we can and can't do. But
well, and I always like just if I can support our country, that's one thing I want to talk about in the next week or two and on my social media stuff is I don't remember the bicentennial because I was born in 78.
Oh, okay.
So I just missed it.
Yeah.
But I feel like there was a lot more patriotism in 1976. And here we're at the 250th. And it's like we got half the people are like, you know, anti-American right now.
You got singers that are very popular that won't sing because Trump is president. This isn't about Trump. It's about our 250th year. It's like, can't we just be happy about that? I mean, I'm so happy that my great-grandfather came from Norway to here.
Yeah.
Because the opportunity here is so much more than it would have been in Norway. But, you know, I just don't get the people that are so negative about living in this country, and it's just like, man, just be happy.
Well, and I think we need to quit worrying about too many of these companies answer to shareholders too much.
Yeah.
Because it used to be, I mean, well, look at that, like that 2-cylinder there.
Yeah.
The selling point of the 2-cylinder tractor was any farmer could fix that.
Yeah.
You could fix it on your farm.
Yeah.
And today, shareholders say we want more profits. They don't want you to fix that.
And that's what I love about these older tractors. There's hardly anything that goes wrong other than batteries, starter, alternator, stuff I can fix.
Yeah.
But now you get the computerized tractors, and it's like, geez, I don't know.
and it goes the same, you know, cars, all that stuff, electron. I mean, people used to fix TVs.
Oh yeah.
No
junk it.
Yeah, and
I got a TV of my daughter sitting over there waiting to get rid of it because it's junk.
Yeah, and I don't think we're better off. So we've answered to the shareholders, but they don't make TVs in the United States anymore. They're made who knows wherever else.
Yeah.
You've got all these people that are so miserable and upset. If we did more of our own work in this country, people, because when people have a purpose and they're making money, then they feel better about themselves and everything. And that's why I don't want to see bigger farms. I want more small farms. Or
I do too. I just cannot comprehend how it's going to ever turn around. So.
But sometimes things go full circle.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You know.
I got a classmate that I graduated with. He farmed with horses. All his dad and him workhorses down by Main Rock. You know, the Dudens. And it's like, you know, he still has some horses. His body's wore out now, but at the same time, man, he's the one that says it's going to come back to smaller farms. It's going to come back. And I says the problem with even a farm like this, if you're going to buy it and hobby farm it and have a big produce garden or something, it's like you got $4,000 house insurance and $4,000 or $5,000 real estate tax to pay for. You're going to have to sell a lot of sweet corn to pay just that part of it. I mean, it just isn't feasible to make money on a small garden setup, but you know.
And that's why I think we're going to need more direct marketing, and that's why I'd like to see more small co-ops.
Yeah.
That, you know.
Well, we don't have cattle anymore, so I bought half a beef from the Lindstrom boys here, right off the farm, and yeah, that's what they make money selling quite a bit of beef that way. But anyway,
I do like seeing money in cattle again. We need that.
I'm afraid that the high price of cattle, buying feeders and that, is going to keep people from doing it. And it's like, well, I don't know. It's just shocking to me what prices are for selling a steer or bull or old cow. Selling old dairy cow when I farmed, you get $300 or $400 top.
Right.
You know, it's like holy moly.
But you know, one thing, I think someone was telling me that, like, the beef thing, the numbers are down and they're going to stay down, and the reason they are is because the price of land is too high.
Yeah.
No one's taking those pastures, taking that cropland back out of cropland to put it. Till they do that, you just won't have.
I had no cattle anymore, so I had 5 acres of sandier ground, some rock. So I thought, I'm going to put corn and beans there I've done it for 10 years now. Part of it this year I put back into clover because it's wet and it don't amount to a bit. You know, I ain't making any money farming it, so
yeah.
I thought I'm going to put bees back there or something and have clover, but it's better for the land to rotate out of corn and beans once in a while anyway. But yeah, it's like that was a mistake plowing up that old pasture. There's a reason in that there's these little patches of woods and pasture around, because it wasn't worth farming.
Well, I say it like erosion-wise. Think of the erosion that, you know, because the crop acres, the reason, like I said, those were put into pastures, they weren't desirable pieces to farm.
Yeah.
Well, think of the erosion. Whether you no-till it or not, you're going to get, you know, it's just not as good for the land.
No.
So I think what the cattle thing is a good thing, because maybe
I think so too. This state is made for cattle.
Right.
You know. Yeah. It's a good thing.
But this is the
original barn from the early 1900s, I'm guessing.
Then,
but it was the level of the bottom of the gutter with pens and a couple stalls. So then when they did the barn cleaner, they just raised the floor up. So it was okay. My dad was shorter than me, but this was not a fun barn to milk in because we had a pipeline and stuff. But
this, you actually formed to raise up. So the gutter is the bottom of the old floor.
Yep.
So
we had pens here, I can remember.
In the barn cleaner, you said you moved the barn cleaner too?
Well, so the original barn cleaner went out that end.
Straight out?
Yep. We can go down there a little ways.
So you put in a reverse curve.
Ron Holcomb, Willard Holcomb.
Yeah.
From Elmwood. He did all this, but my dad had it down there. We added on that addition of the barn, And then when I added stalls to get bigger, then Ron did all this work. And I mean, it worked good for, I mean, reverse curve is a nightmare, can be, but
this one worked good?
It worked good. He knew what he was doing.
Pat's, I don't know, the Pat's is pretty good barn cleaner, but did you ever have it get loose or break and then start piling chain out into the?
I didn't have any chain ever pile into the spreader, but it would come up, especially in the winter, if you didn't pound the paddles loose, you know, every day, then they'd stick and then it'd come apart and you'd see it right away because the chain would come sliding back down the chute.
Yeah.
But yeah, so.
Yeah, I mean, the Badger was a good chain too, but.
Yeah, now it's like I left everything as is because the ceiling is so low you can't park nothing in here.
No.
And the work, I've used the hay mow till about 2 years ago when I quit haying, but we sold a lot of baled hay out of here.
So that's block wall over there, and this was.
Well, it was the same as this. My dad was a friend of Dwayne Hager, Danny Hager Jackson.
Yep.
He was a talented block guy. My dad hired him. He jacked he put new wood here because the old barn, you could see where the old posts were here.
Yep.
Anyway, so they put a new board here and across, and then Dwayne did all the way across and put a new block wall in because it was starting to tip out.
What year was this barn built, this part?
I'm thinking my great-grandfather came here in 1883. I'm thinking maybe around 1900.
Okay.
You know.
Was it a dairy farm early 1900s?
Well, yeah, they always had, like every farm back then, chickens, pigs, and cows, you know.
Yeah.
My grandpa probably never milked more than 15 cows or something. But.
Yeah, because really, the Ellsworth Creamery was founded in like 09, but that was, but there was like 3 different creameries that made that up, right? I think.
Yeah, I don't know where my grandfather sold milk, but
probably just sold cream.
Probably, yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. So the stalls were. So you got 3 different kinds of stalls.
Yeah,
that's pretty common though. Cause
whatever was popular, you know. You could see I did stalls here, tore out some stanchions, and then later Pater's stalls and Pater's stalls there. Yep. And then Dale Fryer did a lot of work in here. These are from Fryer.
So are those insulated on the walls? Is that
I put some there because we always had such a when the cows are here in the winter, even though we had fans, they were breathing right on the wall, and the north wall was always frosty. And I thought, I just kept experimenting with stuff, and this is my dad's brother. Quit high school and built this part of the barn. Yeah, he was a really good carpenter too. He built the whole barn, so they added on the hay mow and everything. That's why it's taller down here.
Huh. So then, straight out the end,
and then my dad ended up adding from that block wall out.
Oh, okay.
He added this where the barn cleaner came from here and up, and then the tractor and spreader, we just parked there every day.
Oh.
So, and then I tore the pens out and put 3 stalls there and 5 here, and there's my 43 cows.
Right. Yeah. So, this is a newer with the steel.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if Dwayne Hager built this. Probably did.
Would that have been late 70s?
Oh, let's see. Yeah. I imagine my dad sold his cows 75. I started back in 76. So I'm thinking it was that summer of 76. Because my dad was not going to have a spreader and tractor sitting out in the cold anymore. He had done it too many years. And then
Yeah.
I think he about had a heart attack when I took all this stuff out and put the barn cleaner sticking out the wall again. Yeah. So how many?
These old barns are great.
Yeah. You know, and it's like everything had to be wheelbarrowed down, 2 cows to a wheelbarrow, so it's like 20 trips up and down morning and night.
Which, you know, when you were talking about having so you said your dad liked because your walk is very wide.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like they couldn't.
And I think back in the day when they had pens, you know, that to me it must have been that they parked a spreader or something in here overnight or something too back in the day. I don't know. Because I put in every time I go to a cow cross and I'd milk with 4 milkers, and you know, it's a lot of extra steps. I wish I had a step counter on my phone back then, but we didn't even have a phone, you know. It's
Right.
like, oh, I can't imagine how many steps it was.
Well, and the narrow feed alley, like you said, would be then the feed wouldn't get away from them. But
they could reach the wall pretty much, but
yeah, on the other hand, I mean, half the reason you'd push feed in was just to get them up to eat again. Because I don't know why that is, that feed can sit in front of them all day, and you grab a broom and do something to it, and
That's what surprises me about these big dairies is you go to there on a breakfast morning or something for dairy days, and they got just the stack of feed in front of these cows, and it's like, if I did that, it'd start heating, you know, if they didn't eat it, especially in the summer. I hardly ever kept the cows in the summer. Yeah. Unless it was really hot and humid. But then it'd be a big mess in here. They'd be slobbering all over everything.
Well, yeah, because, part of it is, I think the reason it was heating is your drinking cups and everything else, because between the cows sloshing the drinking cups, because, you know, on a hot day, they like to play with them. And then the water pipes would sweat.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, it was a mess some days. And in the winter, I let the cows out every day for an hour and clean barn and bedded them. But now that's what I say about one of my classmates. It's like, he never let his cows out, and then he fed with an electric feed cart. Yeah. And it's like, it's no wonder he could last longer than me. I was wore out, man.
Yeah, Claire Janish had poured a curb and made like a real tight, or he had made a gutter for the feed. Oh. And he was proud.
We had that in here too with stanchions.
Yeah. But the problem with that is, boy, a drinking cup floods, you wreck it all.
Yeah. Which is why I put in a Pat's Manure water pump, you know, because, man, even with high flights, if a cup overflowed, it's like it was a disaster.
Yeah. That's one thing.
But even haylage feed and feeding a little protein, manure was always loose.
Did you run a box spreader, or did you run a semi-solid?
Yeah, I had a box. Well, my dad liked the old, what were they, Starline barrel spreader.
Yep.
Which was okay. That's what we had in here a lot when we parked it.
You probably bought that from Behringer.
Yep. And then we went through a couple of them. But you could never keep them chains from hitting the barrel, you know. You'd always have to be putting in bolts to make the chain shorter. But then I did try, John Deere come out with a push pan, you know, and it was split in the middle where you'd push it to the back, but we had it parked in here, and the barn cleaner was inside, so then all that liquid ended up on the floor before you got it out the door. So I used that a couple days and took it back and got just a box spreader, and it did the trick. But I was pretty fussy on cleaning them out in the field every day in the winter. And
what I always did with when I had the Quinn farm down there was I would haul I had to haul every 6 days.
Yeah.
But when I got done, you'd take the 3 loads out with the spreader I had. Yeah. When you got done with the last load, you just went and did chores and left it sit out there and freeze itself while it was running.
Yeah. And of course, that heated shop,
Yeah.
I didn't have that, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing I wish, man, how I could have used that heated shop over the years, milking cows, and then I put that up in 2010.
Well, I laugh with, like Ronnie Webster gets that shop, and I mean, them guys worked
Oh,
hard all them years and
yeah.
stuff, and it's like you finally get a shop at the end.
Yeah, yep.
You work in the dirt.
That's how it goes. It's like I probably cleaned barn without a cab tractor for 30 years, you
Right.
know, and then you get a cab tractor, and it's like, oh, wow. Now once you got the barn cleaned on a really cold day and the tractor was running, you used mixed fuel in the winter, but man, you had her made, sit in a heated cab.
Yeah.
Yeah, just, you know.
Yeah, actually, if it wasn't that cold out, it was probably nice to go spread manure. You
Oh,
got a
yeah,
little-
it was a break. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So, yeah,
Well, yeah, we better look at them silos.
yeah,
Well, thank you very much.
yeah. Well, it's good to see you.